great session, and a lot of it was because of his relationships. Also, you got a great speaker from this area, Will Weatherford. This year, we did historic things with regard to tuition. And if it hadn't been for some of the people standing up here, on two people in particular, but three up here, we wouldn't have gotten that done. The speaker led the effort to make sure we reduce tuition for all families. Make sure families like mine growing up, I lived in public housing. I remember when my parents' only car got repossessed, how people like that can afford to go to school. Because if we don't make sure that everybody can afford a higher education, we're not giving everybody the chance to live the American dream. So, Speaker, thanks for your leadership. There are two branches of the legislature, and it takes the Speaker's hard work, and also we have two great senators up here. We have Senator Latvala and Senator Lee back here, both great local leaders, but they are leaders in the Senate. If you want to get things done, if Senator Latvala and Senator Lee aren't on board, it probably won't happen. And if they are on board, it will for sure happen. They do a great job. Also, you've got Commissioner Crist, the good Crist up here. So what a session. Wherever you came from, if you lived in another country and moved to Florida, whatever family, whatever zip code, you had a shot this year. We're giving you first $500 million back of your money. $500 million back in your pockets. So you can buy a house, or more importantly today, buy a car. You can make sure you can put food on the table. $400 million of it was right that impacts anybody that owns a car. Charlie Crist passed a 54% increase. 54% increase when you went to register a motor vehicle. 54%. How many people think that was too high? We all do, right? Yeah. It's ridiculous. So we cut $400 million, this legislature did. We'll be signing that into law, so we'll put that money back in your pocket. But on top of that, there's now a sales tax holiday for hurricane season, a sales tax holiday for getting back to work. You won't pay a sales tax when you buy a car seat for your child, things like that. So this legislature really came through, put money back in your pocket. So congratulations. On top of that tuition, Charlie Crist passed legislation that increased tuition at our universities 15% a year. Now, how many people are seeing their income go up 15% a year, year after year after year? They're not. I mean, we're doing well, but 15% every year, that's unreasonable. So we stopped that. On top of the fact that if you grew up in our state, you're going to get in-state tuition just like your peers. So we want every child that grew up in our state to have the chance to live the American dream, just like I had. I grew up in a family that struggled, but I was able to get the GI Bill, and tuition was so much lower. I want every child, and all of us got elected, I want every child to have the chance to live the American dream. So what a change. We're paying off debt. We're getting people jobs. We have a better education system. And so what we believe in is exactly the slogan we're using this year. Let's keep working. So let's practice before I introduce the Lieutenant Governor. Let's keep working. Let's keep working. Let's keep working. Let's keep working. And Larry would say, buy more cars. But now it's my distinct opportunity to introduce your Lieutenant Governor, an individual that cares about your family just like I do. He has two young daughters, 6-year-old Sabrina and 1-year-old Sophia. His daughter told me, a 6-year-old told me when I was going to pick him, she said, my dad will do a great job. And he has. Carlos Lopez-Cantera.
Thank you. Thank you to the Morgans for having us here. Thank you, Governor, for giving me the opportunity to serve with you. When I was in the legislature, I served under several governors. My last 2 years, as the governor said, was under Governor Rick Scott. And the 4 years before that was with Charlie Crist. And I can tell you, without a doubt, the difference in leadership between these two men is stark. Because one was about talking and chasing cameras, and the other one was about action and doing things. And that's why this legislative session, I believe, was so successful. $400 million reduction in tag and title fees, an additional $100 million in tax cuts, lowering tuition, record amount of funding for education, record amount of funding for environment. This was a successful session led by the Speaker of the Florida House, Will Weatherford, and our leaders in the Senate, Jack Latval and Tom Lee. So I've enjoyed my time working with Governor Scott. I've gotten to know him as an individual, as a family man, seeing him behind the scenes, so to speak. And I can tell you his story and his life, his background, his history, struggling to make ends meet when he was a child, struggling to pay his way through college using the GI Bill, serving his country in the Navy. These are the things that I know now drive him every day to wake up with a singular vision, which is to make this state better. And that's why, after just about 4 years under Rick Scott, this state has gotten better. Unemployment has dropped almost 5 percentage points. The state lost over 830,000 jobs under the previous governor, and it has added over 515,000 jobs under this governor. And under this governor's leadership, with help from our friends in the legislature, in the last 4 years, the state has paid down over $7 billion in debt. All right. $7 billion. Freeing up that debt, also, for anybody who pays a mortgage, you know you have to service that debt. So you have $7 billion less debt. That's hundreds of millions of dollars that are freed up to go to services and to give back to the people of Florida. And that's important because we believe, I know the governor believes, and I know the legislators and Commissioner Crist believe, that the people who know how to spend the money the wisest are the people who are earning. And that's why this governor and this team behind me worked so very hard to cut taxes over the last 4 years 25 times, capped off with the $500 million tax cut this year. And this is only the beginning. I look forward to 4 more years of cutting taxes, cutting regulations, and strengthening this economy so that by 2019, when the governor and myself leave office, this state will be the #1 state in the nation that all other 49 states are measured against. So that's why I think it is extremely fitting that the slogan of the campaign is, "Let's keep working."
Let's keep working.
I look forward to continuing to work with Governor Scott and our friends in the legislature. And it's my honor to now introduce a man who I call a friend, who I served with for many years in the legislature, who just is finishing his career as Speaker of the Florida House. Great leader, great friend, great representative, Speaker Will Weatherford.
Yay!
Thank you. How's everybody doing? Great. All right. It's an honor to be here. And I got home after session, and my 6-year-old said, "Daddy, is session over?" And I said, "Yes." She said, "Finally, thank you." So it was a long session, but it was a very productive one. And I want to tell you, $400 million tax cuts don't just happen by accident. Historic funding in education for the state of Florida and for our children doesn't just happen by accident. Reducing tuition for every student in the state of Florida doesn't happen by accident. It happened because of leadership and because of the leadership of our great governor, Governor Rick Scott. Yeah. This was a historic year. It was a historic year not just because the governor fought for lower taxes and for more money in education. It was a historic year because the governor and the legislature also showed compassion. It was a year of results, but it was also a year of compassion. And your legislature and your governor fought hard for everyday citizens so that they would have an opportunity to be successful in life. We protected vulnerable children. We reduced tuition. We protected the elderly. We reduced the amount of taxes that you have to pay. We made it easier to get a job and to create a job in the state of Florida. That's what you sent us to Tallahassee to do, and that's what we're doing. And if you give us 4 more years of Rick Scott, if you give us 4 more years, you will see a lot more of it. Thank you very much, and thank you, Governor. sorry, I missed my cue. Speaking of compassion, a man in the Florida Senate who showed great compassion for the children of our state and making sure that we not only lowered tuition for everyone, but we also brought tuition equality for the kids who need it. This is a senator from Pinellas County who also represents Hillsborough County now, that has become a great friend of mine. He's a great public servant, Senator Jack Latvala.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and the person who was out front on that issue, I kind of tagged along and helped you, but there's no one who put their career, their reputation, their whole status on the line for that issue like the Speaker did, and I'm so proud of it. Many of us here today are Republicans, and we need to understand that the success of our party, and I've been in our party here in Florida actively for 42 years, as a volunteer, as a young Republican, now as an elected official. We need to understand that the secret to our success long-term as a party is by being inclusive, not exclusive. And I think Will Weatherford set that tone very well this year. All I'd like to say today is that I kind of have a unique situation in that I've served 4 years under this governor in the Florida Senate since I came back to the Senate in 2010. And then I served 4 years in the state Senate alongside Charlie Crist back in the 90s. And I picked this guy. No doubt about that. Governor Scott, what you see is what you get. You won't get something different tomorrow. You won't see a total change of philosophy based on a poll or based on some whim that might come along. He's a guy, and I haven't always agreed with him, but I've always appreciated his sincerity and his forthrightness in what he wanted to get done. He's a results-oriented guy. I'm proud to support him. I'm proud to work with him in Tallahassee the last 4 years. And we're going to do our dead level best to make sure we work together 4 more years. My other colleague, who I've served with back then and now, and I'm so glad to have him. This is his district. So glad that Tom Lee's back in the Florida Senate. You ought to be real proud of him. He brings a level of maturity and leadership that we desperately needed in the Florida Senate. And I want to turn the podium over to my colleague and good friend, your Senator Tom Lee.
Thank you, Senator Latvala, and let me begin by welcoming everybody here to the eastern side of Hillsborough County, God's country, and as the chairman of the local party here, and as someone that represents the entire east side of the county, we're delighted to have the governor back. Like Senator Latvala said, and I'm going to dovetail on the points that he made. As he said, there are a number of us in the Florida legislature that have had a chance to be in and out of public life over a protracted period of time. And we've had the privilege of serving with a number of governors. This is my 3rd governor that I've had a chance to serve with. And several months ago, he came right here to this dealership to advocate a $400 million tax cut to roll back these tags and registration fees. And then he went to Tallahassee and he got up every morning and tried to convince the Florida legislature that that was the right thing to do. As someone that's worked with multiple governors, you see their differences in work style, you see their differences in principles and their belief in policy and their ideology. And I can tell you that Governor Scott is a man who gets up every morning with a plan for the future of this state. He's run large organizations. He understands that you're not going to get where you want to go if you don't have a plan. He has a plan for the future of this state, much like his plan to roll back these registration fees. And he is getting up every morning and trying to advance the ball down the field and put some points on the board. Florida is beginning to click on all cylinders, and it's because of the leadership of people in our government like Governor Scott and his Lieutenant Governor, Carlos Lopez-Cantera, who are leading the way in this state to economic prosperity. And it is clear to me, in my 20 years of service in this community and in the Florida legislature over a period of time, that there's no one that understands the metrics of this economy, what it takes to grow jobs, what it takes to encourage and stimulate capital investment in our society than this man behind me right here, our Governor Rick Scott. And I will stand shoulder to shoulder with him on any day, in contrast to what he faces in opposition in this upcoming election, because I know what's on the line. And like Senator Latvala said, I too have served with the other candidate in the Florida Senate, and we was a member of the the cabinet. And there couldn't be a more stark contrast between these two individuals. And I can tell you that this is a man behind me right now, Governor Scott, who does exactly what he said he would do when he asked you for your vote. And he said, at his inaugural in 2008, when I sat there in the very cold weather of Tallahassee, he said, I'm going to work hard to make sure that everyone who wants a job in the state of Florida has one. And in 4 years, I'm going to come back to you, and I expect you to hold me accountable for what I've accomplished. And I think the governor has done an extraordinary job moving this economy forward in a very, very difficult, in fact, an unprecedented time in modern economic history. And my hat is off to him, both as a businessman in this community, as a member of the Florida Senate, and as a father and a husband, that we have someone who's as principled in his leadership as this governor. So thank you very much for being here, Governor, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to stand by you.
Commissioner, we're going to now hear from the good Crist, Commissioner Victor Crist.
Thank you, Governor. I got to start off and say there's no squirrely politics with this governor. I've had the opportunity to serve under 5 governors in the Florida House, the Florida Senate, and now in the County Commission. And I got to tell you, what we see is what we get. And let's talk about what we see. What we see is more money being spent towards education than historically before. What we see is taxes and fees being cut as short as his hair. What we see, Governor, we like that. I share it too, brother. What we see is we see crime rates going down and strength and support put towards our public safety in this state. What we see is businesses, both small and large, growing, job opportunities growing, and frankly, people getting hired and unemployment going down. So what you see is what you get. We are very lucky to have this man as our governor. I am very privileged to be here today in support of him. And Governor and the leadership of our legislature, thank you so much for a very successful session.
So Larry, Britt, and John, I hope you sell a lot of cars. I hope you hire a lot more people. There are by the way, there's 260,000 job openings in the state right now. We've added 563,000 jobs. As the Commissioner said, we have cut taxes, we've cut regulation, we've streamlined the permitting process. It's working. So let's keep working. Let's keep working. Let's